Let's talk a little bit about categorical thinking. Now, categorical thinking is a normal type of cognitive economy. It's a way that we manage our cognitive load or information flow on a daily basis. We put information, people, places, things, experiences into buckets or categories to help minimize our cognitive load, to help manage that information. And it's adaptive. We all do it, and it's helpful. However, it comes with certain risks. There are negative consequences to categorical thinking, and we're going to talk a little bit about two of them. The first is compression, and the second is amplification. What does it mean to compress information? Why is that a risk associated with categorical thinking? Well, when we put information, people, things, experiences, into a box, a bucket, a category, we stop seeing that thing on a continuum. Instead, we see it as a discrete, separate item, something that's grouped with other like items, other like people, experiences, places, and things. And we start to discard the differences that exist between those same people based on the fact that they share the category. And that's compression. Let's take a look at a couple examples of how categorical thinking can change the way that we look at people and things. Let's say you're hiring for a position. You receive 20 resumes, and you rack and stack those resumes from top to bottom. And you select the top 5 resumes based on technical competence to invite for an interview. You invite those individuals out, and you interview each one. But now, because they're all sharing the same category or bucket of highly technically competent, the differences in their technical competence are a wash, even when they're really not, simply based on a category and now the way that you think about them within that category. Instead, even though you hoped to hire based on technical competence, you now favor soft skills, interpersonal skills, interviewing skills, personality, all reasonable predictors, but not what you had intended, because the categorical placement of those individuals as highly technically competent has now washed out the category in your mind. You're more likely to look to other things to make that decision. Let's talk about amplification. If you're an NBA coach and you suffer a recent loss or a recent win, it changes how you go about your starting lineup for the next game. 17% of NBA coaches are more likely to change their starting lineup if the last game they played, they suffered a loss, even if that loss is by a single point, than if they won, even if they won by a single point. The relative difference, 2 points, a single basket shot, right? But when one is put into the category of a loss versus a win, it makes a big difference in how we view that information, and it leads to different decisions. It amplifies the difference between the quality of the play of our players based on the last game, whether it was a loss or a win. If it's a loss, it's more likely we re-scramble the deck. If it was a win, even if there's just a single point difference, it's much less likely that we re-scramble the deck. In a recent Harvard Business Review article, Bart DeLange and Philip Fernbach reviewed research that looked at how categorical thinking impacts the way that individuals view body image and body mass. Participants in a particular study were shown a series of equidistant body silhouettes representing BMI in the spectrum for women. At the same time, another group of research participants were shown the same body silhouettes, but this time body silhouettes that were accompanied by categories: anorexic, normal, and obese. After viewing each, the participants were asked to rate the images based on various dimensions. They saw the women differently when they were labeled than when they were not, even though nothing about the women themselves had changed. For example, participants assumed that the personality and lifestyle of woman 7 was more like that of woman 9 when the two were labeled obese. Similarly, women 7 and 6 were seen differently when they were receiving different labels. In this way, the categories themselves washed away the differences within groups and accentuated the differences between groups. And that's an example also of amplification. When we put people, things, experiences into boxes or buckets, we take away their individual characteristics and we artificially create a distance or a difference that may not really exist because we believe it does between categories, even when it may or may not between individuals. So categorical thinking, once again, it's normal, it's natural, we all do it, we do it every day. We've got to put information into buckets, into categories to help us manage the information flow. And it's adaptive, it's helpful. But it comes with certain risks. We talked about two: compression and amplification. So what can you do about those risks? Well, being aware of them, having insight into the fact that this is part of a normal process is the first step. The second one is to challenge certain assumptions. When you're making decisions, when you're placing people into categories, be aware that you're doing that. Be aware of the risks of compression, that you're washing out certain differences that still exist by the pure category you've placed them in, and be aware that you're amplifying differences between groups of people because of the groups and not because of the people. And that's amplification. And those are two of the main risks in categorical thinking.